Welcome to Math Plus, where math makes sense. Rounding decimals. Again, rounding decimals is the same as rounding whole numbers. So let's review those rounding steps. Number 1, identify the rounding place value, locate the rounding digit, apply rounding rules, and then adjust the remaining digits. So let's go through all these steps with some decimals. Here we have the decimal 3 and 45 hundredths. It says to round to the nearest tenth. So the step 1 is we have to identify the tenths place. So remember, if you don't know your place value, you're not going to get this right. So the tenths place is the 4. Step 2 says locate the rounding digit. So remember, we want to look at the digit next door or beside it, which is the 5. That's what we're going to use to apply the rounding rules. Now, applying the rounding rules, since 5 is 5 or greater than 5, you have to round up. Remember, if the rounding digit is 5 or more, you're going to round up. So that means the 4 is going to become a 5. And then adjust remaining digits. Replace the hundredths place and beyond with zeros. So the result is 3 and 45 hundredths rounded to the nearest tenth is 3 and 5 tenths. Okay, let's apply that to a couple other examples. Round to the nearest tenth. Okay, let's look at our number. The first thing we have to do is find the tenths place. Well, I know, and you should know by now too, that the tenths place is right beside the decimal point. So we know that that's where we want to round to the nearest tenth. Then we have to look next door and we find the rounding number, which is a 1. Remember, if it's less than 5, then the rounding number is going to stay the same. If it's 5 or greater, it's going to round up. So since 1 is less than 5, that means the 4 is going to stay the same. So when we round this number, we are going to rewrite it as 10 and 4 tenths. Because since we're rounding to the nearest tenth, we exclude everything after the tenth place because we are rounding. We are rounding. This is the step that a lot of students forget. They forget that once they figure out how to round, then they replace all those other digits with either zeros, which you could put zeros if you want, but you can just leave it off. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't change the value of the number. Okay, let's look at another one. Round to the nearest hundredth. The decimal is 2 and 876 thousandths. Okay, so if we're rounding to the nearest hundredth, that means it is the 7. Okay, number 2, locate the rounding digit. The rounding digit is the one that's going to tell us how to round. So the rounding digit is the 6. Now, since 6 is 5 or more, that means our 7 is going to round up. So when we rewrite this number, it's going to be 2 and 88 hundredths. And then you drop the 6 because it rounded the 7 up to 8. So 2 and 88 hundredths. That is rounded to the nearest hundredths place. So we're going to look at another example with the thousandth place. Okay, so here's our decimal. We want to find the thousandths place, and if we look, the thousandths place is right here. So we have to find then the rounding number, which is the one next door, which is the 4. Since it is less than 5, that means the 1 is going to stay the same. So when I rewrite this number, it's going to be 5 and 391 thousandths, and I leave the 4 off. Okay, let's see what happens when there's a 0 in there. And this is interesting. Round to the nearest whole number. We've learned that decimals is part of a whole. So anytime it asks you to round to the nearest whole number, it's actually referring to the ones place. So this is something that a lot of kids forget. If it says whole number, it means ones place. So again, I'm going to use the rules just like before. I'm going to look next door. It's a 2, which means my 4 is going to stay the same because 2 is less than 5. So when I rewrite this number, it's going to be 14, and that's all. I am not going to include anything after the whole number. Now, I can put a decimal point and put zeros, but I don't need to because it doesn't change the value. In other words, 14 written both ways is exactly the same thing. Okay, so that's rounding to a whole number. Let's try one more rounding to a whole number. So when it says, again, round to the nearest whole number, it's talking about the ones place. And then if you look next door to find the rounding number, it's a 6. 6 is greater than 5, which means this 6 is going to round up to 7. So when I rewrite this number, it's going to be 17. And remember, I leave everything afterwards off. Or I can change it to zeros. That's rounding decimals. Again, just like we did with rounding whole numbers. You look at the number next door. If it's 5 or more, the number will round up 1. If it's less than 5, it will stay the same. And again, we do the same thing. You just have to know your place value for decimals so you make sure you are rounding to the correct place value.